Hello, I'm Rachel from Douentza Garden in Ireland, and you are very welcome to this video all about dividing Sobralia. So this is an orchid, an enormous orchid that can be used for pot displays or even in gardens outdoors if you happen to live somewhere where you have a Mediterranean climate. For me, however, in Ireland, I grow this in the greenhouse, but more about that as we go on. Anyway, this is a monster. It's a plant that gets really, really big. And today, yes, for my sins, I have to divide it. So do join me and see how I manage with this absolute brute. Before we get on with dividing this big plant, I just want to say a few words about it. So this is Sobralia, a fantastic, beautiful plant with Cattleya-like flowers that comes from South and Central America. I think you can find it in places like Costa Rica, Panama, Ecuador, and many more. And it grows on bamboo canes, forming very large clumps. Now, unfortunately, despite its amazing, and I do mean quite amazing flowers, Sobralia is the poor cousin in the orchid world, often overlooked by growers and botanists alike. I think there are still many species yet to be discovered. The general consensus is that this plant grows into a big clump with flowers that just last for one day, so a very short flowering period. But I have to tell you that when this plant flowers, despite them only lasting one day, like a daylily, they come so frequently, and there are so many of them, that it really is a fantastic plant. Now, I've had it in a pot outside my front door for the last couple of years during the summer, and it has caused a great stir among my garden visitors, always asking, what on earth is that really unusual plant? So it is one that deserves to be grown much more. Now, there are different types of Sobralia. There are the ephemeral ones, and by that name you can guess that mostly the flowers last for just one day. And these are the tenderest of them all, requiring a minimum temperature of 10 degrees centigrade in winter. The second group is the field Sobralia, and these are more hardy, and my hybrid, which is a cross between two species, between Macrantha and X veitchii, which is a natural hybrid. So my cross, which is called Mirabilis, fits into the second category, and I believe it is actually perhaps the hardiest Sobralia of all, tolerating temperatures as low as -2 degrees centigrade outdoors. I believe it's used as a landscape plant in places like Florida. That's not what I'm going to use it for, but I do think I've been mollycoddling this plant too much, bringing it into the house in the winter. And by dividing it, I want to experiment, plant one portion in the border in the glass house, give one portion to a friend, try a third portion in a pot in the glass house over winter, and then just as backup, bring the fourth portion into the house. Because this really is a plant that I want to be successful with, and it would be just amazing if the border in my greenhouse could be full of these fantastic Cattleya-like flowers all through the summer. That really would be a coup for me. So I guess without further ado, let's get on with dividing the plant. And to do that, I'm going to have to get behind the table. I forgot to mention the best time to divide Sobralias, and that is just after flowering. But do wait until the plant has sent up new growths before you divide it, like this one has here. They say that dividing a Sobralia is worse than dividing a big cymbidium, and we all know how difficult it can be to divide a cymbidium. But with the cymbidiums, at least, you don't need to worry too much about damaging the roots. But with the Sobralia, we're going to have to, well, take as much care as we can to not break the roots. But I've seen how this plant is when I've repotted it and I know that those roots are just a mass of congestion. Now, there it is lying on its side, and the first thing to do is to get it out of the pot. If it doesn't come out easily, I'm going to cut the pot. It's not coming out easily, so I have a secateurs, and we'll just go down. Whoa! See what I mean about congestion? Now, this guy has been potted in pure sphagnum, and it seems to do well on that. And one bit of general advice is never ever pot this plant in a fancy ceramic pot that you're not prepared to break. Okay, and here we go. This is the root ball, and can you believe it? We must try to not damage the roots, which seems to me like an impossible task. We can cut the rhizome at the top, but we shouldn't damage the roots. And I have read that a screwdriver is the best thing to use in trying to separate the roots in the root ball. So we're going to give that a try and just kind of go in here and kind of try our best to loosen the roots. I have my doubts that this is actually going to work, but you know, maybe it will. And you can see how the roots at the side of the pot have really become quite squished as a result of it being in too small a pot. Definitely time for dividing. Maybe I'm going to just try and chip the roots that are circling the top of the pot out first and see if that leads to greater access. Now, normally when I divide orchids, I'll give them a good soak first in a bucket, but this is my first time dividing a Sobralia, and I didn't read anywhere that that was the thing to do. So now I'm wondering if perhaps I should have soaked it. It's hard to know. Would that make these roots more flexible rather than helping them to break with this screwdriver? I wonder, maybe would it be an idea to have a go from the base. So I'm just going to try and pull some of these roots loose. Oops, there's a spider. And it seems almost impossible to separate the roots without damaging them. No, I'm just doing too much damage here. Do you know what? To hell with the experts. I'm going to plop this into a bucket of water for about an hour, and we can approach it then once the roots are a bit more wet. I feel that if they were more supple, I'd do less damage. Okay, so here's the bucket of water, and here's my plant. Once more into the breach, dear friends. Right, so now we're going to lift this brute out of the water. Did I mention to try and be careful of the new growths sticking out from the side? They can break very easily. Oh my god. Woo! Okay. Now, if I can get into the middle of the plant, the roots at the center of the plant should be, well, rotted basically, because after all it is a perennial. So with all perennials, the center of the plant dies and it kind of grows outwards. And yes, so it's a terrestrial orchid, it's a perennial. And if I can get into the center, then with a bit of luck, the rotted roots will kind of give and we'll get some purchase on this thing. I'm just working my way around the base of the plant, inserting the screwdriver whenever I can get in between roots rather than straight through them, and wiggling it. Now, I do some damage while I'm doing this. I won't pretend that I don't, but the idea is to do as little damage as possible to those roots. And if I have to damage the ones on the, if I have to damage any roots, let it be the ones at the center of the plant, right inside that root ball that would be dying anyway. And they say with this plant that the moment you lose patience and just go at it willy-nilly, that's the moment when you do the damage. So we'll just take our time, and if it takes half an hour, if it takes an hour, so be it. I think I prefer to use my fingers than the screwdriver because you can feel when you're doing damage better with the fingers. I'm not really sure how much difference soaking the plant made, but the roots are still quite brittle, but I think it made them a little easier to work with, a little more pliable. We can see that on this side of the plant there are a lot of white root tips, indicating that these are the best and healthiest roots. So these are the ones I really must try not to damage. So that's the good side with all the white tips. And if we turn the plant over, we find the bad side, where a lot of the roots are just kind of completely degraded. And I am not going to worry about damaging these because they're already dead. So if I just kind of chip away, I can find sphagnum moss just below the surface, which of course is correct because I potted it in sphagnum moss. Ooh, there's a stake that needs to come out. Things are not looking good over here, but we chip away at some of these roots and then we come to some good roots. Let's just cut off the stake here. And remove it. So you can see in there's a good root straight up. I'm just going to take the secateurs and cut off some of these degraded roots. Now I did sterilize the secateurs before the job began, just with some boiling water, and that's particularly important when you cut through the rhizome, which I will be doing, I guess, sooner or later. These ones are all a bit squishy. Squishy is not a good feel for orchid roots. Now it is of course best to remove all of the old sphagnum so that it doesn't rot and bring the roots with it, but there's a fine line to be drawn. Now if you grow mostly ordinary garden plants, you're probably looking at me and saying, leave the roots alone, leave the roots alone, what are you doing? But if you normally grow orchids, you're looking at me and you're saying, oh, take more of it out, take more of it out, and put hydrogen peroxide on the roots to sterilize them afterwards. But with terrestrial orchids, there's a fine line to be walked in between doing both of those things. And I do hope that I get the balance right with this Sobralia. I'll tell you what, let's dunk it in the bucket for a bit. What a brute! By the way, if you're finding this video useful, don't be afraid to hit the like button and to subscribe to the channel. And if it's been more useful than that, perhaps you'll consider clicking on the super button, which is a way to pay me a small amount of money. $5 would be just fantastic. Thank you very much. We've come to a point where we can see the previous root ball. So the plant was this size at one stage, I think, when I made the repotting video before, and it got put in there. You can tell how everything was pretty dense then. Now it's proving very difficult to get up the center of this plant, and I've made some headway here on the outside and at the bottom, but it's just going on and on and on. And yeah, this is the point in time when you lose the will to live, really, I think. Let's turn it over. This side is quite impenetrable. This side is where all those good roots were, and I don't want to go messing and go through there. That would not be a good idea. And then we're back to where I was. Hey, do you know what this means? Look, we're into the part of the plant that has orchid bark. Oh yeah. So that means the original root ball. I bought this plant bare root in Madeira Island, which is part of Portugal, a bit that's off the coast of Africa. Brought it home, which is perfectly legal, and potted it up. And the first thing I did was pot it in orchid bark. So we're down to the middle there. And yes, I did just wantonly break roots. The strands that are on the inside, the indimen is, it's broken down in many cases. I'm not going to lie, I have broken a few roots doing this job. But we're getting there! Yay! I've come to understand the action with the screwdriver. So you're pushing it in and you are actually breaking the roots, but not in the brutal kind of way you would do with a saw or an axe or something like that. So you're wiggling it so that you can pull roots apart if they need to be pulled apart. You will break some because there are some that just won't go apart, but at least you're limiting the damage. Okay, now I am creeping up to the top of the plant, and we need to take a look here as to where it's going to divide, because we can cut a rhizome, but we need to cut it in a sensible place. And here, can you see there's a kind of natural division between that section of the plant and that section of the plant. So if we could get the roots to part there, then we're quids in. I would cut the rhizome at the top, but it's very hard to see what's what. No, we're not there yet. And now I'm having a go from the other side of the plant. And I have to admit, I'm being a bit more brutal than I was in the beginning, because this is a difficult job. There. Okay, so I've pretty much split it. Split here, and then if we turn around to the other side, you can see, I hope, how it's split up this side too. And I feel if I just gave it a tug, I could separate it, but I think maybe I can't. Maybe it's too difficult. Let's turn to the other side again. Now there may be rhizomes at the top that need to be cut. I can't really see that, so I want to kind of tear it up as far as that point, and then maybe cut them. Oh, yeah. There we go. Not that tearing is always a good sound, but in this case, I think it is. Yeah. Whoa! Best workout ever, I think. Right. So, the plant is in two halves now. Let's just have a look. Let's untangle the leaves. I just need to be careful not to break the canes. And let's have a look at this. So, here's one half, and you can see the original rooty stuff or root ball stuff going on in the middle, various layers of mix that have been used since the beginning. And of course I do need to cut it again. Need to divide that in two. Let's pop this one into the water and have a look at the other half, which is, I guess, the lesser half. There's a cane, and yeah, so again, cut down the middle, turn around. Now, when you divide Sobralias, don't divide them too small. This is a plant that likes to have a lot of canes and will flower best with a lot of canes. So 8 minimum is what you're looking for. 8 canes minimum. I'm going to have a lot more than that, even if I cut this completely in two. So I need to go down here. Let's just have a look at what we have at the top. It's difficult to see, but there don't seem to be really any natural divisions. It just seems to be a mass of canes. Maybe here, this point here. Let's see if I can find a rhizome to cut. So, same old. Remove the swag. Try not to break the roots, but make your peace with it if you do. And the screwdriver, yes, the screwdriver. We need to wiggle it in there. So this is the point where I broke the plant in two. There's the rhizome, and I think I want to try and cut it here. This roughly equates to where I want to divide it, looking at it from the other side. You can see where I've cut the rhizome there. It's trying to give, but I think maybe I haven't cut it all the way across, or whoa. I'm being very careful not to pull too hard, holding just the canes. But I think it's divided at the top now. There's a nice bit of rhizome that's come out. Okay. Yes. Oh, we're there. We're so there. Those roots. The roots need untangling rather than yanking. There we go. 2 pieces. And you know what? This is the point in time where I ask myself, will 3 pieces be enough? Do I really want 4? And I think the answer is 3 will do. So I've got 1 for a pot that I'll overwinter in the greenhouse, 1 for a pot that I'll overwinter in the house, and the big piece I will plant in the greenhouse border. And sorry to my friend. Let's get these tidied up, and I'm not going to do a whole load of tidying up like you might do with regular orchids. I'm just going to remove by hand any sphagnum, any loose sphagnum that's there. Sorry about the roots that are torn. Any that are torn and come off like that will come out. There was more root damage done than I hoped there would be, but we'll see how this goes. Right, so here are some clean pots. Now the big boy that is going to go in the greenhouse border, I can't put him in yet because I haven't cleared a space. I need to take some gingers out. So I'm going to put him in a pot for the time being. And yeah, just if you're wondering, I'm not going to clean up the root balls any more than that. If I go trying to extricate all of the moss that's in there, I'm just going to do further damage to the root ball. It's had enough trauma, and so have I. So let's just leave it at that. So we're going to pop this one in basically the same size pot that you saw me use for it originally. But of course I have space on either side for the mix. And I'm using sphagnum moss because I've used sphagnum moss before for these plants and they seem to do well. They seem to grow well, they seem to like it, and they seem to flower well. So that's what I'm going to continue using. And in case you're wondering, my sphagnum moss is from a company called Cybotanica that sells mixes for pot plants and for greenhouse plants and for house plants. They have a fantastic range of ready-made mixes for various types of plants, all peat free, and if you want to buy some, then there's a discount code in the description down below. But enough of that, let's just get on with potting this big boy. After I finish doing these, potting these up, I am going to give them a good watering and then just keep them in a shaded position because they've just been newly potted and they just need a bit of shade while they establish and the roots get going, which shouldn't be a problem in overcast Ireland at this time of year. And that kind of wraps up dividing and repotting Sobralias. If you don't know the plant and you have the opportunity to buy one, I highly recommend it because you really can't beat these fantastic flowers for pot displays on the patio, on the balcony, in front of the house in summer. They are fantastic, absolutely gorgeous. If you're interested in my orchid videos, I have made 2 playlists which I'll link to in the description below. One which deals with repotting orchids, and this video is going to be in there. And then the second playlist is all of the orchid videos I've ever made. So if you're stuck on a wet, windy evening for something to do, then do have a look at those. My area of expertise, let's just say, is of course Cattleyas, which I absolutely love. And I have published a booklet, an e-booklet about growing Cattleyas on a windowsill, which I do here in Ireland. So if you'd like to purchase a copy of that, the link is also in the description down below. The book, or an abridged version of the book, was published in the UK Orchid Journal, and the book is the lengthened form of that. If you don't want to buy it, you can alternatively become a channel member and get it for, well, I think it's $5 to become a channel member for a month, and you get a free copy of the book. So do bear that in mind. And then finally, just to say thank you for watching, and well, yes, I'll see you on the next video. Bye.